Just a reminder to please look at the member site for all announcements. I know most of you are accustomed to going to the member site. Please look at that. Now we do have, you want Rife updating, you want your program updated for any reason. Let's say you're not doing well, you need some updating because you are doing great and you want to add some programming for your spouse. You're having totally different symptoms. I'd like to add some inflammation program to my overnight. Whatever you want, I'm willing to do. So I just need to know what that is. Well, now on the Rife resources page, which I know a lot of you are not utilizing the member site the way we want you to. And I realize, I get it. Everybody's busy. Life is crazy. But we put all that information on there for your benefit. And I know you're not utilizing it. Some people aren't because some of the questions that you guys have are already answered. So I do want you to start utilizing the website as best you can. So on the Rife resources page, you'll see this box right here. This is request a Rife update box. Fill that out. Just put your new symptoms, change in diagnosis, what you want changed. We have people, probably the most common reason why people want to update their Rife is they're doing better and they want to, maybe add some different programming for some comorbidity. Like maybe they have candida and they really would like to deal with that now. Whatever you want, you can ask for that. Understand that there is a fee for that. The charge is per 15 minutes of my time. So it's $135 for that. Usually I can do it in 15 minutes, but if we've had people in the past ask, can you add this and this and this and this and this? Well, that could take a long time. So it can take an hour to do it. Well, I have to charge for that, just so you know. So, but you can be as specific as you want and ask me whatever you want. Remember that everybody has access to all our other courses, so please take advantage of those. That might answer a lot of questions that you might have too. On the Zoom call page, there's some updates too. Understand that, so I know you don't read everything because you don't know that there's changes, but I just want to update you. We have had, like today, we had a lot of questions this week, and I want to do my best to get through everybody's questions, but we also need to be respectful that, some people are asking 15, 20 questions, and I'm gonna have to pick and choose some of those questions. So if there's questions that I've answered on other Zoom calls, I'm gonna point you that way to look that up and to do your research on that. Use this little thing right here. All our blog is on our member site now. You'll notice that our blog is not on our website. We literally had to take it down because the FDA wrote us a nice 7-page letter saying that we had to take all anything on fenbendazole off our website, anything on fenbendazole off our store, and a whole bunch of stuff on curcumin. It's just insane things that they can put on you because we live in a crazy world today, and you can't fight these things. You either obey them or they just literally come in and shut you down. So we had to take all that information off. So we moved our blog to the members only site. So the general public can't see all of our 800 and some blog pages. And Angie is updating our blog pages right now. And she'll tell you that there's a lot of blog pages. So that is all only available to you. So take advantage of it. And how do you get to it? Go to any one of the members only site pages, the private full membership site pages, and go to that little icon right there, and you can click on it and search for whatever your little heart desires to look for. So if you want to search for something, then you can search for that. Now we're going to put the pages on fenbendazole and details on that back up on that blog page soon, because it's going to be only through a private site. So it's not out to the public. Okay, let's get to your questions here. In February, I had very low iron. Before I found out that I had a tumor in my colon, I did iron infusions. At the time, I was told I had any rashes to let them know. I had a small rash 1 week, but it went away. Now, months later, starting in October, the rash came back. I put vinegar on it and it went away again. In December, it came back. My doctor told me it is a fungus under the skin and it's hard to get rid of. Okay, so my question right there would be, how do they know that it's a fungus under? I would ask those questions. Is it, what testing did they do to come up with that diagnosis that it's a fungus under your skin? She puts you on this medicated cream. I've used it, it goes away, but it comes back as soon as I get back. So because that is a steroid cream that will decrease the inflammation and but it doesn't really it certainly doesn't kill a fungus. And certainly not going to deal with anything that is subcutaneous or systemic that's causing it. So still not dealing with the cause there. I've used it, it goes away as soon as I cut back on the use. I looked at the Rife ringworm program blog. The suggestion was kelp capsules. So a ringworm, I Google the ringworm and look at the images of ringworm, because ringworm is very distinct and easy to diagnose by looking at the pictures of ringworm. If it looks like those pictures, well, then treat it as a ringworm, and certainly you could use kelp and run the ringworm program. I would also try some essential oils on it. Started using vinegar again to keep it from getting worse. I would definitely try some essential oils on it. I would try some grapefruit seed extract, not grape seed extract, grapefruit seed extract as a liquid form. You could also take that as a capsule form. But I would look up that rash on some Google images to make sure you're really dealing with what you're dealing with. You have to understand, and I'm going to talk about some people who submitted some information about lab work. The same as my answer is going to be the same for that. The most common cause of some of these things is a medication that you're taking. So if you're on any medications, that is the most common cause for a rash, is a medication you're taking, which is a sensitivity to a medication. So many medications affect your metabolic pathways and could cause irritations and histamine disruptions and rashes. Basically your body, partly trying to detoxify through your skin. So look at that as well. What I'm saying is try to dig to the cause of that. Good morning, Dr. Connors. You and your entire staff are in my prayers constantly. Thank you for all you do. I would like to know via a Zoom call question, without cheek swab testing, how does that eliminate the ability to update our Rife program frequencies? So I guess I already answered that question. So go to the Rife resources page on your member site. Down at the bottom, you'll see request a Rife update. Tell me exactly what you're looking for. So even if okay, my cancer is getting worse, things are not improving. Can we change things? Yeah. So, but give me your symptoms. Tell me what's going on that. Question in the chat. Any chance of getting a search feature on the mobile version? That search box should be on. So that search box should be on this phone too. If it's not, I'll ask Dustin. It should be there, but we'll check into that. Okay. I think this question was actually from last week, but I'll answer it again. My CEA levels are still climbing. I have mild anemia, and my hemoglobin has dropped further in the last month. My doctor recommended I take iron supplementation like ferrous gluconate 324 milligrams twice a day. Is there a better option? Yes, so the iron that I would recommend is our clear iron that we have on the store. It is an iron that is, again, remember all your minerals, and iron would be considered a mineral. It needs to be double bonded, and it should be a Trax, or I explained that with minerals in the past multiple times. And that's what you should definitely be looking at with anemia issues. Have you heard anything about cilantro being a good natural chelator? So this points back to your ability to go back to, you have access to all these courses. The 7 Phases of Detox course right here is where we talk about the 7 phases of detox. So we talk about when you talk about a chelator, chelation is what I call phase 0 in the 7 phases of detoxification. And I go through the best detoxers for chelation, to chelate. You got to make sure all your other 6 phases are open and you're at least working on those before you start any chelation. But certainly cilantro is a good chelator. Now, cilantro would be classified as a mild chelator, and I write much about that in the 7 Phases of Detox book. You really can't hurt yourself with cilantro, even if you were dealing with some other phases of detox at the same time. I started adding cilantro to my green smoothie daily just in case. Figured it couldn't hurt. Yes, I would be with you 100% on that. There really isn't any downside to cilantro. Cilantro is a food, and a person could have a food sensitivity to cilantro, but it's not very common. That would be the only thing, so look for that. But cilantro is a great, very mild chelator. So this may be a wacky idea for continuing your ministry in the midst of this hyper-regulation happening right now, but on the off chance, it might lead somewhere, so here it is. If you could reorganize as a nonprofit, I really appreciate this comment. You're trying to help us out and to be able to help you out. So understand, I really do appreciate that. Reorganizing as a nonprofit doesn't solve anything from a medical legal standpoint, because who the portals of government that come after clinics like us are medical boards. So the medical boards are basically not regulated. So the president and the members of the medical board or the chiropractic board or the naturopathy board in some states, whatever legal entity is supposed to be regulating that industry, the president of that board is assigned by a governor. So the governor has the right to fire the president of the medical board and to put somebody else in their place. But it's one of those things that never happens. So a new governor comes in, let's say the old governor was a Republican and the new governor is a Democrat. Very, very rarely, if ever, do they go through and change the presidents of these boards. They're basically, once they're on there, this is kind of a job for life until they retire. And the truth is that they are judge and jury over anybody they want to be. So they can file a claim that you're practicing medicine without a license. If you have a medical license, they can file a claim against you that you're disobeying the rules of your licensure. It's worse if you're licensed. So, for instance, in the state of Minnesota, there was a medical doctor named Dr. Jensen. Well, there's multiple medical doctors that this happened to during COVID that came up against what was what he was being forced to do by the Minnesota Medical Association in treating COVID. And he just asked questions. And of course, he had multiple complaints against him. And then he had to get a lawyer and he had to defend himself, yada, yada, yada. It just made his life completely miserable. And that's just really what they're doing. They're trying to make your life completely miserable. Now, if you're not licensed, they have the right to come against you and sue you in court for practicing medicine without a license. And they define what that is. So it's by their definition. So you're really, again, up the creek without a paddle, because you're basically fighting against definitions. And they're the ones that make the rules on definitions. So it's very difficult. So regardless of what corporate entity that we were operating under, it doesn't make any difference. If we are doing one-on-one consultations, then they're saying that's practicing medicine. So you can't do that. So it's that's the issue. So I do appreciate you trying to be creative. We're trying to be creative as well. We just need to stay legal. Is there any news on AJ? So AJ is Anne's son. So Anne has been with us for about 5 years. She is now gone on full leave right now to deal with him. He is doing a protocol for, he was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia just a few months ago when he got super ill, near death, had to race to the hospital. It was just a very crisis situation. Discovered the leukemia, had to do some chemotherapy. Just really had to. It was the right thing to do. He was very ill, and I really do believe that the chemo saved his life. That gets back to just our dogma of our doctrine, you could say, our doctrine as far as how you should treat yourself, regardless of whether you have cancer or anything else, is not to be dogmatic. So what I mean is, and I've stated this in my book, and verbally said it, 100 times, which is, don't take a dogmatic position in your treatment protocol. So I think it's wrong let's say if I get cancer and I'm like, well, I'm not doing anything natural, I'm going to do everything my oncologist said, is going to say that's all I'm going to do. Well, I think that's foolish, because you're taking this dogmatic approach against other things that could possibly help you. But I also think it's just as foolish to take a dogmatic position that I would never do chemo. There's no way I'm doing chemo. Now, I understand people have experiences and they have to make decisions, but I still, even if you're emotionally positioned against doing chemo, I still think you have to keep an open mind that, hey, if God's going to lead me that way, then I'm gonna do what he's going to tell me to do. I'm not going to be dogmatically positioned. I'm open to whatever God has for me. But he's going to have to change my heart because he knows I don't want to do chemo or whatever that is. So I just, in AJ's situation, it was the right thing to do. He's got 2 more rounds of chemo. He has had ups and downs to his health. He's back home right now from the hospital, but he spent a week in the hospital, last week with a serious crisis again, really bad crash. So keep her and AJ and Tyler and his husband and their whole family in your prayers, I ask, because it's just been really very difficult. So she is taking a leave. She is has not been working. She tried to come back part-time. It's just not going to work. So just keep them in your prayers, please. When I came to the clinic in August 2021 with all my supplements I was currently taking, the only one you told me to stop taking was the homocysteine resist. Now, 1.5 years later, it turns out my functional doctor was correct in prescribing this, and I'm going back on it, thanks to the Dutch test and the homocysteine test results. But can you give me some insight as to how my uncorrected low methylation impact my general health, cancer, and detox these last 18 months. I don't understand much about methylation, though you speak often about the danger of over-methylating. What are the issues of low methylation? What might I expect now that this is being corrected again? Well, you probably won't see, as far as what you can expect from being corrected again, you probably won't have any symptom changes, life changes, you won't notice anything. The idea that, so here's why you don't want to be on methyl groups, too many methyl groups when you have cancer. Methyl groups, so a methyl group is, from a biochemistry standpoint, is a CH3. Actually looks like that when you would, from a biochemistry, organic chemistry standpoint. That is a methyl group that attaches to different components. Now, what you have with different methyl groups that you take, like a product called methylcobalamin, which is a methylated B12, or methyl tetrahydrofolate, which is a methylated folate, is you have methyl donors. So those products then donate methyl groups to your cells. What happens in your cells is those methyl groups function inside the cells at the nucleus of the cell, and they help silence genes. They turn off different genes, which is good and bad. If you have cancer and you have excess methyl groups, you stand the potential of turning off what are called tumor suppressor genes. Tumor suppressor genes are genes that turn on when there's cancer growth. And what they do when they turn on is they help cause apoptosis of the cancer cell and help kill the cancer cell. So hence, if you have excess methyl groups circulating in your body, you will be silencing tumor suppressor genes. And by silencing tumor suppressor genes, you could propagate a cancer. So you could increase the growth of an existing cancer. You could increase the likelihood of cancer. It's just like, okay, when women have, BRCA genes, defects on their BRCA genes, what are the BRCA genes? BRCA genes are just one tumor suppressor gene. If you have defects on your tumor suppressor genes, they have the potential of not working as well as if you didn't have defects on them. So if you did develop a cancer cell in your breast, let's say, and it starts to grow and you have defects in the tumor suppressor genes, they're not going to work as well. What do? They're supposed to turn on and cause apoptosis, cell death of that growing cancer. Well, also, you could have perfectly healthy BRCA genes and no defects whatsoever, but you are over-methylating because you did a genetic test and it showed a MTHFR defect. So then your naturopath or chiropractor said, well, you need to be on methylcobalamin and methylfolate. That's your problem. And you're over-methylating and you are basically silencing tumor suppressor genes. Well, it gets worse than that because if you have defects on your biopterin pathway, which is a different metabolic pathway, that biopterin pathway is how you make all your neurotransmitters. So your dopamine and your serotonin and your GABA and all that, you over-methylation pushes that pathway and you'll make excess of that, which can cause severe emotional imbalance. And rage issues and anger issues and PMS issues, and you mix that with any other hormonal imbalance and you have a cocktail of, lots of issues. So I'm not in favor of just simply using excess methyl groups to deal with an MTHFR gene defect. The only reason why I would suggest you use methylated vitamins is if you have elevated homocysteine. So that would be the only reason to take methyl groups in my book. And even if you have elevated homocysteine, you have to balance that with, well, I also have cancer. So then, okay, well, where's my risk reward here? If your cancer is fairly stable, well, then certainly use methyl groups, but if to help lower your homocysteine levels, but you want to be rechecking your homocysteine levels on a regular basis, probably every few months. It's a simple blood test to do to make sure you're not, taking it for no reason whatsoever. Should we still send pictures? Should we still submit test results? Can you still see people one-on-one? Yes, you can still send pictures. We do put them in your file. Should you still submit test results? You certainly can submit test results. Do you see people one-on-one? No, we can't see people one-on-one anymore. So understand, I know this is frustrating for you. Times it by 10, and then that's the frustration that we're feeling. Okay, so you could just, be frustrated. I want you to be frustrated. I just want you to be frustrated at the right people. So don't be mad at us. We are exhausted and very saddened about all what's happening, having to fight this on many fronts. So please understand that. So you reviewed my homocysteine results and recommended the methyl supplement. So my question is, what am I correcting? So methylated supplements and your B vitamins will help reduce homocysteine levels. So that's what you're trying to do, is to reduce the homocysteine level in your blood. That's the whole purpose. So back to the, should we still send pictures? You can. Should you? No, you don't have to. You can if you want to. Should you still submit test results? You can, especially if you have a question about a test that you want to ask on the Zoom call, but those all have to be addressed on the Zoom call. So you could send, maybe it would be better to send just the abnormal findings in the Zoom call question box, which is similar to this blue question box at the bottom of every page of the member site, but it doesn't say requested update. It says submit a question. So that would probably be the better thing to do, is just submit the abnormal finding. If you have a question about it, like somebody has a question about alkaline phosphatase down here, we'll get to in a couple of minutes. They just submitted it in the question box, which I think would be more appropriate. So at this point, based on bowel movements, my tumor is still restricting things. Not much improvement there, but we won't know until the next MRI, I hope. I believe your program is working. Certainly, situation is slightly better with no additional spread. And more importantly, I feel generally good, though I do feel restrictions in the colon. I do have bone on my left hip. That is not related to the cancer. And it appears that no hip replacement surgery will be appropriate until some sort of allopathic intervention takes place or the tumor is gone. So I think this person is being restricted to do any type of hip replacement surgery until he agrees to do colon surgery or something. I think that's the situation. At your suggestion, I investigated prolotherapy as well as stem cell therapy, and but the doctor said I was not a candidate after seeing the X-rays. So that's unfortunate. So it must be pretty bad. So stem cell therapy can be really beneficial, but if you're really bone on bone, then it just may not work at all. The other thing that I will say that I know people have had success with is ozone injections. So there is a rogue doctor in Minnesota, I think she is still doing it, is doing ozone injections. And it was really for people with disc issues and bone-on-bone issues. So she was injecting ozone right into the site. So you may find somebody locally that's doing that. Look up doctors who are doing ozone. And I think there was mixed benefits. And like anything, this is, a serious condition when it's bone on bone. It's a chance that that's going to help us. Probably not really great, but it can get you through for sure. Back to a question on the blog. I'm really sorry. I'm not asking my questions right, I guess. What is the function of homocysteine? What damage is done when it's high? How does it affect detox pathways? Tumor growth. Homocysteine does not affect tumor growth, does not affect detox pathways. Homocysteine can damage your arteries. So you don't want to have high homocysteine for a long time because you can etch your arteries. That's the whole reason why you want to decrease homocysteine. So, and you could look up homocysteine. There may be other, I'd have to look it up and see what other functions homocysteine. Understand everything in your body, all your metabolites are, none of them are just all bad. They serve a good function, but in excess, they can serve a bad function. It's all about balance. Have you ever heard of a therapy called EBOO? No, I don't know what that is. All right, let's get to these other questions here. I'm experiencing numbness and slight discomfort on the right side of the prostate area from the sit bone to the scrotum and an occasional stinging feeling near the scrotal area. I also have mild chills all over my body during waking hours. In normal activity, I do not experience chills while resting. I also feel mild blahs and tired feeling. I assume these annoying and uncomfortable experiences are the result of the cancer spreading. Well, that is the possible reason, that the cancer could be spreading. It just could be, the cancer is irritating a nerve that's affecting that area too. So, I mean, it could be something else too. So this person has prostate cancer, I believe. You could have prostatic hypertrophy along with it. That could be causing neurological damage too. The only way to know that your cancer is spreading or not is to go back and do the same test that diagnosed it in the first place, the size of it in the first place. I consider that I'm in the minor pain category on the comparative pain scale chart per Dr. Connors. Please suggest some remedies that will significantly reduce these experiences. Note that 2 ibuprofen soft gel capsules a day significantly eliminate the chills and blah feeling and the uncomfortable nagging numbness after experiences for the better part of the day. I do not take 2 capsules a day regularly, but took 2 capsules a few times to monitor the effect. Okay, so if ibuprofen helps, and 2 soft gel caps is probably 400 milligrams of ibuprofen, that's not a whole lot of ibuprofen. So then I would consider, what would be a possible nutritional approach that would be a more natural approach. Well, then you think about things like upping your curcumin. It just goes back to your anti-inflammatories. So like CurcuClear would be an option. And maybe the liposomal form of CurcuClear, which is the liposomal CurcuClear, think of the Clear Inflam, which has a bunch of other anti-inflammatories like boswellia, stinging nettle, white willow bark, rosemary, I think, and some other anti-inflammatories. So I would think I would up those. Whenever I have like inflammatory type symptoms, my new favorite is the liposomal CurcuClear that I've just kept on my desk, and I just gulp it right out of the bottle. So I take maybe a tablespoon if I'm having issues a couple times a day. Like today, I took it several times today. So or the CurcuClear capsules work too. So anti-inflammatories would be the go-to thing. Thank you. I'm very blessed to have crossed paths with you. Thank you. I've enclosed my blood work from yesterday. I'm very excited. Besides my 15.3, this is your CA 15.3, which is a cancer tumor marker that's more specific to breast cancer, going down a couple of weeks ago. My CEA went down. That's another tumor marker. So if you don't know what these things are, go to the post on tumor markers. So you should search right there on tumor markers and see if you know what those things are. So is there a tumor marker that you could use to monitor your cancer? So just like this person, how can you monitor prostate cancer? Are there tumor markers that monitor prostate cancer? Well, really not really, but PSA, prostate specific antigen, is a tumor marker for prostate cancer. None of the other ones really are specific to prostate cancer, but you have PSA that you could use. So my CEA went down this time also 12.9 to 5. Now that is a super significant drop. So CEA is one of those with a really tight margin, like 15.3 and 19.9, I think normal is 0 to 35 or something like that. CEA is below 5 is normal, below 3.5 if you're a non-smoker is normal. So it's a very tight margin for CEA. So if it went from 12.9 to 5, that's a huge drop. That's huge. Question I have is that alkaline phosphate went up a few points. Is this any concern? So this gets back to what I was talking about way back on one of these questions, is that the number one reason for some of the liver markers in the metabolic panel. So this would, alkaline phos is one of the markers that will be tested in what's called a complete metabolic panel, or a CMP. That is going to measure liver markers and your cholesterol and cholesterol breakdown and your albumin and your other protein markers, your AST, ALT, and your alkaline phosphatase. Alkaline phosphatase will go up, as I've stated multiple times, if you have bony lytic attack on bone. So if you have metastasis to the bone and the bone is being eaten away, which 95% of the time with bony metastasis of cancer, it's a lytic metastasis where the bone is being eroded, alkaline phosphatase would rise, but it will typically spike. And you'll very commonly get a blood calcium level increase as well. But the number one cause of an increase in alkaline phosphatase and a change in any of the other liver markers is toxicity of the liver or congestion of the liver, but really toxicity of the liver. And the number one by far cause of that is medications. So if you're taking any medication, that's your culprit almost always. You're really, when you're looking at alkaline phosphate, it goes up a few points. First of all, the range of alkaline phos is pretty high. So if it goes up a few points, that could mean nothing. And it probably does mean nothing. You have there's a plus to minus of probably 10 to 15 points on alkaline phosphatase with its normal blood test abnormalities and reading abnormalities. So, but if it's spiked way up, that would be a concern. But still, your first finger pointing would be to medications you're taking. I'll say, hey, I'm not taking any medications. I haven't taken any medication, not even anything for a long time. Well, then you have to start digging into, do you have any metastasis to bone? But you always point to, you always have to point to medication use. Even taking ibuprofen, people have a sensitivity to ibuprofen or Tylenol, and it can change their alkaline phosphatase really. Even taking a couple a day, even a couple a week, can be affected by that. So I would suggest that you don't have to worry about it. You are taking medication. I would not even consider any of that at all abnormal. This is the same, another question from the same person that's there on Ibrance. So Ibrance is a daily use chemotherapy for breast cancer and some other female cancers, and that definitely is going to affect your liver. So there's your alkaline phosphatase problem. Also taking monthly Zometa and Phosphodex. Question I have, once again, is body odor. Again, body odor is quite often because your body's trying to detox poisons, and these medications, though they may be really helping you. So I'm not saying don't go on the medication, but this is the side effects of some of this stuff. So you're just going to have to be using a lot of essential oils or something. Megan started me on dihydroberberine and during my break on Ibrance, and she's talked about starting Lamidine. Does this sound okay with the protocol I'm on? Yes. So you can't really go wrong with berberine. Lamidine, I would just say you go slow on it. Don't, and Megan knows it's not to go fast on it too. So I've had long talks with her. So one of my cords on the Rife had a short, so I have not been able to run the immune support last week. Should be getting the ball back tomorrow. So notice this: when you have a problem with the Rife machine, do not try to fix it yourself. You have a problem with the cord, get it to TrueRife and get it fixed like this person did. You might be out of it for a few days, but it's worth it getting corrected the right way. Anything else to bring up my white blood cell count? Just your immune support. You just need as much, your Alovia Immune product. That's a polysaccharide with a specific chain polysaccharide that is one of the best things to build up your immune system. Medicinal mushrooms, which we have multiple different medicinal mushroom mix on our store. Turkey tail mushroom. The My Community mushroom from Host Defense is a good one. Our medicinal mushroom blend powder is a good one. If you're using a smoothie, you can throw it in that. I think most of the Rife programs finished completely. Okay, this is a question that somebody emailed in. So remember, please, always send your questions in on the member site, not email site. We can't take email questions anymore. They noticed that their Rife isn't completely finishing. The programs aren't completely finishing. So please look at the Rife resources page on your member site. We've addressed this, and this is definitely one of the frequently asked questions. You shouldn't be looking at the numbers on your Rife. When you're running your Rife, the frequencies that are coming out of the bulb are also hitting the computer, and they are messing up the computer's ability to really understand what's going on. So sometimes people will get upset. Hey, the countdown is not right. It's saying I still have 7 hours to go, and I've been running this 8-hour program for 6 hours already. This is not right. It's because the frequencies are affecting the computer. Understand, when you hit run on your computer, on your program, it sends the entire program to the box, to the little Rife machine. You could unplug the computer. You could take the computer and turn it off. You could bring the computer in the other room. You could go run over the computer with your car. The program is still going to run. So it'll run to the whole program will run. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about what your Rife program says afterwards. It's going to get feedback from the frequencies and mess that up quite often. So don't worry about that. If this is not a new question, I apologize, but if you can no longer do cheek swabs, how do I know? Oh, we already talked about the Rife changes. I had a relative recommend Protocell. So Protocell is something that I think is a great protocol, but we'll talk about the caveats of that. So I write a lot about Protocell. Matter of fact, you could look up information on Protocell in my book, or you could look up information on Protocell on our blog. All right, I bought Protocell 50, but later read somewhere where Protocell 30 is the type. So there isn't a Protocell 30. So there's a Protocell 50 and there's a Protocell 23. Was the type recommended to help with prostate cancer? So I would disagree with that. Protocell 50 is really the type to use for prostate cancer. Protocell 23 is the type you use for any other cancer. So you did buy the right one, so that was good. Half a bottle of 50 left would be beneficial managing my prostate cancer. Yes. So the instructions say things like CoQ10 and vitamin C reduce the effectiveness of Protocell, which is correct. So Protocell is an oxidizing agent. So when you're taking Protocell, so Protocell 50, for instance, you have to take Protocell on a very tight schedule. It says it right on the bottle. I think with Protocell 50, it's every 5 hours or every 4.5 hours. You have to take your other supplements at hour 2.5, right in between doses. So let's say you're taking it at 8 o'clock, and then at 12:30, you have to take your Protocell at 10:30. Or you have to take your other supplements at 10:30. The makers of Protocell, and I actually did an interview of one of the inventors of Protocell, but I lost the interview, so I never got it. This was back when I first wrote a book in 2010. And it was actually before that. And he recommends that if you can, so if you're new to cancer and you're going to try Protocell as a therapy, you don't take any antioxidants. So CoQ10, vitamin C, alpha lipoic acid, glutathione, glutathione precursors, all those things are antioxidants that you would have to take. You'd either go on go off of those for a period of time while you're doing a Protocell protocol, or you have to take them between doses of Protocell. That's the key. You just can't if you take your antioxidants at the same time you take your Protocell, basically you're negating the benefits of the Protocell. You're really not going to give yourself a fair shake on whether Protocell is going to work. You certainly can, pulse your antioxidants, and you certainly could pulse your Protocell. Maybe you take your antioxidants on the weekend and you'd only do the Protocell 5 days a week during the week. You could do things like that. Get creative. So, we're trying to get you to pray about your protocol and what you're going to do, and so that you are taking responsibility for your health and developing that relationship with God that you need to have, so that you could hear his still small voice in your heart leading you. But I can't hear that. I don't know what to do. I need somebody to tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. I get it. But this is what maturing is all about. We need to all mature to that level to be able to hear him. Jesus said, my sheep hear my voice and I know them. So we need to just be still and know that he is God, and ask him to lead us in the ways that we're supposed to go and the things that we're supposed to do. My treatment recommendations stipulated no dairy. Would this restrict me from using organic ghee? So typically, if you're going to use organic ghee, you're going to use it to spread on toast or something like that. So we have said, and it's in your binder, that, yeah, you could use some ghee. Don't worry about that. Even if you're on no dairy, we've had people ask, well, can I put a little bit of cream? I only use a tablespoon in my coffee every day. Is that bad? Okay, remember, this is a diet. This is a recommendation. This isn't a cult. So of course you could do that. It's just, hey, I'm not going to be eating cheese. I'm not going to be eating, I'm restricting the greater part of dairy consumption that I've had. If I could drop my dairy consumption by 90%, you're going to have a huge impact on growth factors. So don't make this a obsessive, compulsive, cultish lifestyle. You do the best you can. Certainly, you using organic ghee, I just have no trouble with that. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy, H-spot therapy, was listed as a treatment recommendation on my genetics summary. In researching that treatment, I found a number of places that describe the treatment as including breathing 100% oxygen. I assume through a mask or under a nose tube. So I don't know anywhere where you could breathe 100% oxygen. That would be, I think, dangerous. and probably deadly. So I'm not familiar with that whatsoever. Being in a chamber tent with pressurized oxygen is what hyperbaric oxygen is. My doctor also has HBOT available during my first treatment. I was surprised that he did not include breathing 100% oxygen. So I talked about that already. It only included the pressurized chamber. So that's what I would do. I would just do HBOT chamber. So yeah, just do the HBOT chamber. I got pretty sick December 2nd, loss of energy, couldn't eat much. I thought I was better before Christmas, but now fighting sinus and respiratory mucus, coughing. Shortly after Christmas, I noticed more lumps under my left breast, at least 2 between my breasts, putting pressure on my chest, and 2 more on my right breast. I'm riding my right machine regularly for immune stimulation of cancer frequencies. Is there anything else you would suggest? So if you notice growth like this kind of thing, this is where you really have to pray about doing some other intervention. I don't remember who even asked this question, but I don't, so I apologize if you already explored that avenue, but this is where you don't want to have a dogmatic position against doing some chemotherapy to knock things down. I can't tell you how many breast cancer patients that over the years I've had to, let's talk about doing some chemotherapy. Now we can't have those talks, but we can do it over the Zoom call. That don't feel bad about if you haven't explored that option, to explore that option. Continue with multiple enemas, saunas, and foot detoxes, certainly. So from a Gerson standpoint, if you're having issues, they would push you to do up to 5 enemas a day. The more you can stimulate your parasympathetics, the better. Remember, the purpose of the coffee enema is to stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is going to stimulate your detoxification pathways and stimulate your immune function to fight any disease, certainly cancer. During my most recent swab 3 months ago, we added fenbendazole. Should I continue to take that? Well, if you're getting growth like this, you have to consider upping the fenbendazole. So if I put you on a pack a day, try to do some different things like increase that. That's one possibility. Go to the protocol page on the membership site. Go to the protocol page and then go to breast cancer protocol and look at the 4 or 5 different protocols that I've put together for breast cancer that maybe you are not doing right now, that you should add one of those protocols. This is where look at those and go, oh, I'm using this, I'm really using most of this protocol. I'm really using some of this protocol. I'm really using some of this protocol, but I'm not doing anything about this. And pray about whether that's something you should add or to increase the fenbendazole. Still doing time-restricted eating 4 times a week. My blood glucose reading mid-morning typically is 75 to 85. Now it's showing over 100, 105, 106. So another thing, another protocol that I'm going to be putting up, that I just did an interview with a gentleman named Alan Cash. Alan Cash is a physicist who started all the research on a product called oxaloacetate. And oxaloacetate is a metabolite that is found in the Krebs cycle. So you remember high school biology, the Krebs cycle. So the Krebs cycle is what is how you make ATP, right? So ATP is energy. So ATP is if you don't have ATP, you're dead, right? So ATP is the energy, little capsules that function in your muscles to create function of your muscles, that function in your every single cell of your body requires ATP, and every single cell of your body makes ATP in the cell itself, in one of the organelles in the cell called the mitochondria. So the mitochondria, which you have thousands of mitochondria in your cells, in each cell, and they are responsible really for making ATP. So within the cytoplasm of the cell, you have glycolysis taking place in the mitochondria, glycolysis taking place. Glycolysis takes glucose. So glycolysis takes glucose. So you need glucose, right? So glucose is broken down through glycolysis to make pyruvate. So pyruvate, well, ultimately pyruvate, but pyruvate will break down to make lactic acid. And then lactic acid can be used in a as a poor use of energy production, because you only make 2 ATP through anaerobic energy production through glycolysis, especially if you have a HIF1 gene defect. So it's getting technical. You can look at the genetic. I put a whole video together on genetics with the HIF1 gene defect. But that's what happens. That's what's called the Warburg effect. So many times in cancer, you are not able to get your glucose into the Krebs cycle, and that's what can feed cancer. So oxaloacetate is a component in the Krebs cycle that is, if you add oxaloacetate as a supplement, you actually break down the Warburg effect. So the cancer can't feed directly off glucose nearly as well. So adding oxaloacetate as a supplement can help break down the cancer's ability to feed on glucose. Well, how do I know if my cancer is feeding on glucose? Well, one is if in your genetics you have a high amount of HIF1 genes, and in your genetic report that we have given you, we would have highlighted that, and because we call it a tumor suppressor gene, but actually nobody else does. I call it a tumor suppressor gene because defects on the HIF1 gene can cause the Warburg effect. So I listed as a tumor suppressor gene, though it doesn't function technically as a tumor suppressor gene. Also, if you have something like this, normally my glucose is 75 to 85. And I haven't changed my diet whatsoever. Nothing's changed. Now it's over 100, 105, 106. It's quite possibly what's taking place is the Warburg effect. And it's quite possibly adding oxaloacetate would be the thing to do. Now, oxaloacetate is available. We have it in just 2 forms. It's really 2 dosages that the Alan Cash, the owner of Terra Biologicals, they make the product by the name of Benagene. Now, a number of you are on Benagene. So Benagene is oxaloacetate, but their label Benagene is 100 milligrams of oxaloacetate. So that's still a good dose to start with. You could take 3 a day. That's what they recommend, 3 a day of the Benagene, and in that dosage. Or now they have a high dose of oxaloacetate, and they call it, I think it's oxaloacetate. No, it's called, what's it called? Let me look it up really quick, because I know I'm talking about it. CFS, I think that's what it is. It's called oxaloacetate CFS. Think about it for a second. And the reason why it's called CFS is because they did all these studies on it for chronic fatigue syndrome. Because people that have serious chronic fatigue syndrome, serious COVID, post-COVID, long haul COVID symptoms of fatigue, it's because of the same thing. They are functioning, their cells are only being fed through the Warburg effect. So the Warburg effect was described by Otto Warburg. I lay it out in detail in my book. If you want to get into it, you can Google the Warburg effect. Back in the 1930s, he described the Warburg effect as that's how cancer is fed. Not all cancer is fed that way, but certainly a lot of cancer is fed that way. That's why we take you off of, high sugar diets, right? That's why you don't want to be eating candy if you got cancer, because you can propagate the Warburg effect. And one of the ways that you can break that is through using oxaloacetate. So the product is Betagene is the low dose or lower dose, and oxaloacetate CFS is the high dose. So that's more expensive, certainly a much higher expensive product because it's just based upon dosage. So you could certainly start with Betagene, start with 3 of those a day to see if that can make the changes that you want to take. They are currently doing studies. They're actually doing a study on with Mayo that's starting, I think, next month on glioblastoma. The initial studies that they did is with astrocytomas and glioblastomas, and then the FDA made them take that all off their website. Isn't that wonderful? Even though it was proven to be very effective with brain cancers. So it does reduce glutamine in the brain as well. That's another thing, benefit about oxaloacetate. That's why it would be so helpful with brain cancers as well. But the key functional component and the mechanism of action with any other cancer is that it can break the Warburg effect. So then you go, well, what? Let's say if I don't have cancer, what if my body is functioning stuck in the Warburg effect, what can it cause? Well, the number one thing it can cause is imbalance in your hormones. So it can be a major issue with PMS issues and chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia type symptoms. People that have, maybe blaming their symptoms on long-term Lyme disease or tick-borne illnesses, it can really be that they're stuck in the Warburg effect. And certainly fatigue with cancer can give you an idea that you could be stuck in the Warburg effect. So using Betagene, which is a brand name from Tera Biologics, oxaloacetate is a good option to go. And I'll have more of that information. I just actually interviewed him. I have known him for a number of years. We've been using Betagene in our office, oh gosh, for since 2006 when he first came out with it. I met him at a conference, and we speak all the time. So I just did an interview with him on our podcast. Apologize, I already put that question in twice. Okay, so this person had a long question, but it was just stating some of the things that they're doing. And then they said, can we do something about the side effects of dry gums? This is side effects from radiation. So this person was doing radiation on a tumor on their neck. And the side effects are, of course, damage to the organs. So dry gums, dry mouth, throat feels dry, uncomfortable. What do you do with the side effects of that? Well, you really have to look at what's the cause of that. It's probably radiation affecting the parotid gland, so saliva production is going to be down. There's not any perfect answer to this. So the radiation is working, and the tumor is decreasing. Praise God for that. There's going to be side effects that you're going to have to just deal with, and in as best ways as possible. So obvious things are trying to drink. I would suggest doing oil pulling in a way that you put like a tablespoon of coconut oil in your mouth, let it melt in your mouth because it'll melt instantly in your mouth, and swish it around, and spit it out into the toilet. And leave that coating of oil on your mouth, then too, that can be helpful. So having a kind of a coating of coconut oil on your mouth and on your throat would be beneficial with this when you have a decreased parotid function, you have a decreased saliva function. There is a product that would possibly help with this. That is, let me pull it up really quick here. That is by Biotics Research. It's called cytozyme parotid. And that's by Biotics Research. I'll put it right down here so you can see it. Cytozyme parotid TS comes in 180 capsules, take about 3 a day or so. That is parotid tissue from a bovine parotid tissue that could help rebuild the parotid gland. That's an option. I would try that too. Can I eat Lily's dark chocolate bars? I'd say yes. But I wouldn't stop doing the radiation if it's working because of the side effects. I would try my best to deal with the side effects and continue that. If they're trying to push you towards chemo too, I just ask them again, like we talked about last time, just continue to try to ask them the tough questions about, well, how would this benefit? How do you really think? Would you tell your father to do this? Just be honest with me. I just ask them those kind of tough questions. Without the use of cheek swab, I'm wondering what you would advise me to change my protocol if my oncologist says one of my nodules has increased in size. I think we touched on that. Go to the protocol section of the member site, look at the protocols that you're not maybe doing, anything else that you could add to the picture. I would certainly add to the picture. What information do you have on anti-neoplastins that have been used to help kill cancer? You can certainly go to Dr. Brzezinski's site. He's got a clinic down in Houston, I believe, and you can look at his information on there. I do write about anti-neoplastins in my book. You can look at that as well. Okay, some of your chat questions. I decided to go to the immunotherapy clinic in Mexico that we discussed. Surgeon still hasn't called. Goodness. Continue to look into lumpectomy surgery, and they might be able to consult with you about that, and may even be able to do it down there. So I'd look into that. So that's good. Thank you. I think I'm depleted in my electrolytes and minerals. I've had a hard time with my stomach and couldn't get anything down. I think after doing so much infrared sauna and enemas without doing juice supplements just weren't enough. I woke up very dizzy, twitch in my right eye. Yeah, so you can deplete your minerals and it can get rebalanced even with a normal diet really quick, but it's really quick to deplete your minerals. Especially if you have diarrhea or you're sick with the flu and you're throwing up or something like that. So again, the supplement for minerals that I would suggest would be the clear multimins is what I would suggest to use. For prolotherapy, check out Dr. Hauser in Florida. He really helped my sister, wrote the book on the therapy. Oh, thank you for that. Big sweetheart, loves God. Maybe that would be a second opinion. So if people can't see that, I guess I can't copy and paste that. Sorry about that. Well, let me copy and paste from that. So I think everybody can see that chat here. Dr. Hauser in Florida. So if you can look into that. That whole message. I'll have to look at that again. Could the Rife have caused some detox and kick this further? You're talking about causing more of the decrease in electrolytes? Well, only if you're doing the foot bath. Certainly, I wouldn't think anything else. Reference slide 14, maybe be slide 12, earlier slide. I'm going to repost here. Took some remedies that and vitamin D, magnesium, B12, and the green drink, which I've been doing. I was going to eat as well, feeling a little bit better, but thought earlier I was going to pass out or have a stroke. Oh, goodness. Well, make sure that you are being careful and you're taking care of yourself. I did not do an enema yesterday or today and haven't done sauna for 4 days as I feel something wasn't right. Any suggestions? If you have the ability to go and get a blood test, that would be really good. You should get your electrolytes tested, and that would be a CBC and a complete metabolic panel. You want to go in and get tested. So for sure do that. So again, the feeling of lightheadedness and things, you start thinking of decreased blood pressure can cause that. Certainly electrolyte balance could cause that. Adrenal fatigue can cause that. But you want to go in and get that checked out. You don't want to be making a mistake and not playing with it. Okay, so complete question. Declined allopathic protocol late update difference. Just increase fenbendazole to 222 grams instead of 3 times per week. November, contacted oncologist, Iowa hospitals. As a result, had a CT scan due to December 14th to December winter storms, MRI rescheduled for the 25th. Results of the CT scan. Liver and lungs look clean, reduction in size of the largest lymph node. No discussion on size of tumor, other lymph nodes as distinctions we addressed at the MRI. Interesting note that oncologists directed latest scans to be the same machines as the original, which is the right thing to do. So you can have discrepancy over the different machines, and believe it or not, you can have the discrepancy over what radiologist reads the report. That's why gold standard is really highly subjective. As of December 14th, 3T scans to monitor progress, lots of inaccuracies. Info from radiologists on interpretations. Well, there you go. Iowa oncologist suggests it's due to variations between machines. Yes, that's exactly right. I did not realize that this was so critical. Here's a link to discussion, the kind of issue. At this point, based on bowel movements, tumor is still restricting things, not much improvement. Don't know the details until the next MRI. So this is what we talked about, that part of it. So sometimes understand when you guys submit a question, I'm not going to put all the data in that. I don't necessarily think that every person needs to know your history. So to partly protect your privacy and to be able to do this Zoom call within 60 minutes, which now we're 15 minutes over that time, I don't put all your data in. Which essential oils would help? I'm not sure help what. If you're using essential oils for cancer themselves, lemongrass, frankincense, copoba are good essential oils. There's lots of essential oils that are good for cancer. Also, topical essential oils, if you're trying to kill like a fungus and things, oregano oil is one of the best. If you're using Young Living Thieves is a good essential oil for that. When I buy D3, what are other complementary letters to get along with it? So we have our ADK Avail and our ADK Complete, which is the same thing, which are all the fat soluble vitamins in one supplement. Where should I put the rife for the pancreas, the front or the back side? I'd put it on your belly. Also, I stopped most supplements 5 days ago because my stomach felt so yucky. That's good. It can be good to help pause some things to kind of clean yourself out too. Are you familiar with homeopathic called Bach flowers? Bach flower remedies are mainly to help with, yes, for emotions. Familiar, what is your opinion? I think they're great. I think it's great to use Bach flower remedies. So there's nothing wrong with using Bach flowers. There's certainly nothing wrong with using homeopaths. I started Pectosol C, got diarrhea a week straight, cut back to 1 scoop and had to stop. Better now. Will I be able to incorporate this at some time? That's the first time I've ever had anybody have a reaction to Pectosol C, but that doesn't mean that's not true. So people can have a reaction to things. You could have a sensitivity to something in there. So will you ever be able to go back to that? I don't know. If you had that severe reaction, it could have been something that you were taking with it, something your diet was going on. It could be completely unrelated. Maybe it's not the Pectosol C at all, but it certainly seems like it. I would give it a couple of weeks off, and then I would try back on maybe a 1/4 scoop and see if you have any type of upset. Kind of keep an eye on it, and then think about upping it if you're not. Can we see you personally in your office? No, we can't do that either. Kroger makes a good organic dark chocolate bar cheaper than Lily's, and Lily isn't organic. Oh, that's interesting. If you have a Kroger around you, we don't have Krogers around us, but you can probably find that in other stores too. Might I also suggest homeopathic remedy, Ignatia, for emotions? Yes, so there's a lot of great homeopaths out right now. I don't know if you've caught in the last month, the FDA is trying to shut down homeopathy. Isn't that wonderful? So, of course, they don't try to shut down something unless it works. Did you decide to do another Q&A? Not yet, not yet. So, okay, I don't know if the audio is breaking up or my voice is breaking up. So with that, I am going to have to say goodbye to everybody. So thank you all for participating. Please do understand and look at the what we posted on here. So I understand everybody wants to get their questions answered, and know that I will do my best to answer everybody's questions. But I don't want to limit people to you can only answer ask 1 or 2 questions, but I also want to be as respectful as you can of searching for the answers that we've already provided as best you possibly can. With that, know that I'll be praying for all you. I love you all, and we'll talk again next week. Bye-bye.